Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Facts Equals Zero Logic, where reality insists on being real, even when it really shouldn't be. Last time, we found out whales can explode, chickens can live without heads, and one guy turned his ashes into a frisbee. Oh, and let's not forget the emperor who made his horse a senator. Apparently, ancient politics had horsepower. But if you thought that was weird, buckle up, because this round, humans have officially declared war on logic. In fact, number 7, a scientist accidentally microwaves himself. In fact, number 18, a man legally marries his pillow. And by fact number 13.9, you'll discover there's an island that literally banned happiness. Yep, logic didn't just leave the chat, it blocked humanity altogether. So grab a snack, mute your common sense, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button before the facts hit back, because trust me, you'll need moral support for what's coming next. Alright, let's begin. 1. The world's quietest room makes people hear their own heartbeat. At Microsoft's headquarters in Redmond, there's a chamber so silent, it breaks people's sanity. It's called an anechoic chamber, and it absorbs 99.99% of sound. Step inside, and you don't just hear your heartbeat. You hear your lungs inflate, your blood flow, even your bones shift. Most people can't last more than seconds before feeling dizzy or disoriented. The silence becomes so intense, your brain starts making phantom noises just to stay sane. It's officially recorded at -20.6 decibels, quieter than outer space. It's peace, but it feels like your soul's been muted. A man built a full-size Noah's Ark because he dreamt it. Dutch carpenter Johan Hubers had a vivid nightmare about a massive flood destroying the Netherlands. Instead of just switching off his alarm and moving on, he decided to build Noah's Ark, an actual floating full-scale replica. It took him years, millions of euros, and more wood than a lumberjack convention. The finished ark stretches 390 feet long, complete with animal replicas, museum rooms, and a small theater. It now floats as a tourist attraction, even plans to one day sail it to Israel. When asked why he did it, he simply said, "God told Noah to build one. I didn't want to be late." 3. There's a hotel run entirely by robots. Japan's Hana Hotel, which literally means the strange hotel, runs with 0 human staff. Guests check in with robot receptionists, some shaped like dinosaurs wearing boaties. Your luggage is carried by robotic arms. Your lights respond to voice AI, and even your goldfish are mechanical. Sounds futuristic, right? Except the robots constantly malfunction. They woke guests up at 3 a.m., deleted bookings, and even fired human technicians by accident. 4. There's a bridge made entirely of living tree roots. In India's Meghalaya region, people don't build bridges, they grow them. Villagers from the Khasi and Janj tribes train the roots of ancient rubber trees to stretch across rivers. It takes decades of patient weaving for each bridge to form, but once grown, they last for hundreds of years. Weatherproof, and completely alive. Some are strong enough to carry dozens of people at once, and others have become UNESCO heritage sites. No concrete, no steel, just nature's engineering and human patience. It's like Mother Earth looked at architecture and said, "Let me show you how it's done." 5 pigeons can recognize themselves in mirrors. Yes, pigeons, the birds everyone ignores, are in tests. Scientists painted small marks on pigeons and placed them in front of mirrors. When the birds noticed the marks on their own bodies, they tried to remove them, proving they recognized the reflection as themselves. That's a mental ability shared by humans, dolphins, elephants, and some apes. So next time you mock a pigeon for walking like it owns the street, remember, it probably knows it looks good doing it. They can also recognize human faces and even read basic letters. Basically, pigeons aren't just sky rats. They're undercover geniuses with wings. 6. A town in Turkey is shaped like a giant fish. The town of Dalaman, Turkey, looks perfectly normal at ground level. Peaceful streets, shops, and beaches. But when viewed from above, the entire layout forms the shape of a massive fish. The roads outline fins, the parks fill in scales, and the airport sits exactly where the mouth would be. No one's sure if that was intentional or just a cosmic coincidence, but locals love it. Tourists now visit just to take drone shots of Fish City. It's urban planning or the world's biggest seafood joke. Either way, way. Dalleman proves cities can have a sense of humor too. 7. A scientist once microwaved himself accidentally. In the 1970s, researcher Andrew Bassett was studying the biological effects of microwave radiation. To test safety limits, he stood too close to a prototype device and accidentally microwaved part of his own body. He didn't explode or cook, but he did suffer mild burns and nausea. When colleagues asked how it felt, he reportedly said, "Warm, but not in a good way." After that, safety guidelines for microwave exposure were completely rewritten. Bassett became a living cautionary tale. The man who helped define microwave safety started by testing it on himself. That's learning the hard way and the hot way. 8. One man lived in an airport for 18 years. Imagine living in an airport longer than most people stay in a marriage. That was Marin Karimi Nasseri's life. After losing his refugee papers, he became stranded in Paris's Charles de Gaulle Airport and stayed there until 2006. He slept on benches, washed in airport bathrooms, and lived off food vouchers from sympathetic staff. Over time, passengers and workers nicknamed him Sir Alfred. His story inspired the Terminal movie, but the real version was far less glamorous. Just loneliness, plastic chairs, and endless announcements. When asked how he survived, Nasseri simply said, "Airports are full of people, but no one ever really arrives." In Tokyo, the hairy hedgehog calf lets you sip coffee while playing with live hedgehogs. For a small fee, you can pet them, feed them, and pose for photos with the spiky little celebrities. The staff carefully rotate them to avoid stress, and each hedgehog has its own name and personality. They wear tiny hats, sit in teacups, and sometimes fall asleep in your hand. It's equal parts adorable and absurd, the kind of thing that could only exist in Japan. Because why drink coffee with friends when you can drink coffee with spiny chaos in a cup? 10. A man once spent 2 years drawing the entire world by memory. Swedish artist Henrik Fexeus decided to test the limits of human memory by redrawing Earth from scratch. No maps, no references, just what he could remember from school, travel, and instinct. He filled massive sheets with hand-drawn countries, rivers, and borders nearly identical to real geography. It took him 2 years, countless pencils, and probably a bit of existential crisis. When asked why he did it, he said, "I wanted to see how much the world I carry inside my head looks like the real one." Spoiler, almost identical. Either he's a genius, or Google Earth owes him royalties. 11. A man once faked being a doctor for 20 years and got away with it. Jean-Claude Roman pretended to be a doctor at the World Health Organization for nearly 2 decades. Every morning, he woke up, dressed for work, and went to the office. Except he never had one. He spent his days sitting in cafes, reading medical journals to keep his lies believable. He funded his fake life by scamming family and friends, claiming he invested their money. For 20 years, no one questioned him. When the truth finally surfaced, the fallout was catastrophic. Books, documentaries, and debates followed all about how one man lived a complete lie. For 2 decades, Roman's biggest medical miracle was convincing everyone he had a job. Moral of the story, if your doctor doesn't have an office, maybe ask a follow-up question. 12. A robot once became a citizen. In 2017, Saudi Arabia made history by granting citizenship to a robot named Sophia. She was built by Hanson Robotics, designed with expressive eyes, facial muscles, and even a sense of humor. Sophia gave interviews, cracked jokes, and talked about human rights despite being made of circuits and silicon. The world was fascinated and a little creeped out. People started asking wild questions like, can a robot pay taxes? And what happens if she votes for herself? Sophia became a global celebrity, blurring the line between machine and identity. She once said, "I want to understand humans." Honestly, Sophia, so do we. 13. A town accidentally sold its only bridge on eBay. In 2007, the English town of Winchcombe made an online listing for a small wooden footbridge. They just wanted to test the market, but then someone actually bought it for £7,500. When the buyer asked for shipping details, officials panicked because that bridge was the town's only pedestrian crossing. They had to explain that no, they couldn't just mail it overseas. The sale was canceled, but the embarrassment went viral. Moral of the story, never underestimate the power of buying Buy it now. Somewhere out there, someone still believes they own half a bridge in England. 14 astronauts can't burp in space. On Earth, burping is easy. Gravity separates gas from liquid in your stomach. But in zero gravity, everything floats together. So, if an astronaut tries to burp, it can turn into what NASA calls a wet burp. That's the polite term for floating regret. NASA even trains astronauts to handle internal gas pressure carefully because one wrong move could cause chaos inside the suit. Imagine saving humanity and then panicking over space indigestion, even in orbit. Human biology refuses to cooperate. Space exploration, where science meets stomach bubbles. 1-5 A man once survived both atomic bombings. Tsutomu Yamaguchi holds one of the most unbelievable survival records in history. He was in Hiroshima when the first atomic bomb hit in night, injured but alive. He returned home to Nagasaki just in time for the second bomb, and he survived again. He lived into his 90s, became a peace activist, and often said, "The world should know what happens when you play with fire." A man who saw the apocalypse twice and still believed in humanity. If resilience had a name, it would be Tsutomu Yamaguchi. 16. There's a hotel made entirely of salt. In Bolivia, on the edge of the Uyuni salt flats, stands a hotel made completely of salt. Every wall, bed, and chair is carved from solid salt blocks. It's called Palacio de Sal, which literally means palace of salt. Guests are warned not to lick the walls. Apparently, some actually tried. Even the floors crunch slightly when you walk, like stepping on a giant pretzel. Because salt dissolves with humidity, the hotel has to be rebuilt every few years. It's beautiful, cozy, and just a bit ironic. You can sleep in luxury inside the world's fanciest seasoning shaker. 17. A man once built a replica of the Titanic in his backyard. In China's Sichuan province, billionaire Su Xiaojun decided to rebuild the Titanic, a full-scale replica, cabins, dining halls, lifeboats, everything. It cost over $150 million and sits more than 2,000 kilometers from the nearest ocean. When people asked why build it there, he said, "Because here, it can't sink." Touché. Now visitors can book overnight stays, eat Edwardian meals, and relive the voyage minus the iceberg. It's proof that sometimes obsession floats, even on dry land. 18. A chicken lived after being decapitated. Again, you might have heard of Mike the headless chicken, but history repeated itself. In 2018, a farmer in Thailand decapitated a chicken for dinner, only to see it walking around 2 days later. Vets found that a clot had stopped the bleeding, and part of the brainstem was still intact. They fed it water with a syringe, and it survived for a full week. Local monks even called it the miracle chicken. Some saw faith, others saw weird biology at work. Either way, it proved one thing: chickens really don't know when to quit. 19. Someone once sued themselves and won. In 1995, a prisoner named Robert Lee Brock decided to take himself to court. He claimed he violated his own civil rights because he got drunk, committed a crime, and went to jail. He demanded $5 million in damages from himself. Since he couldn't pay, he asked the state to do it on his behalf. The judge dismissed the case, but admitted it was creative. It's one of the strangest legal moments ever. The only case where both the plaintiff and the defendant were equally guilty of bad ideas. 20. A man invented a language just to talk to his cat. In the 1980s, linguist Paul Kay created Meow, a full language built to translate cat sounds into human speech. He spent years studying Meow's tail twitches and purr frequencies. He built a 200-word vocabulary and even tried speaking it to his cat. The result? The cat ignored him completely. Still, his work gained attention among pet lovers and linguists alike. Sometimes, passion isn't about success. It's about loving your idea, even when your cat couldn't care less. 21. A man once married a hologram. In 2018, Japanese man Akihiko Kondo made global headlines when he married Hatsune Miku, a virtual pop star who only exists as a hologram. He held a full wedding ceremony with guests, rings, and vows. Though the bride was just light in code, Kondo said Miku tattoo helped him overcome depression and that their emotional bond was real. But when the hologram software was discontinued, he became digitally widowed. The internet laughed, but psychologists called it a sign of modern loneliness. In a world full of ghosting, marrying a hologram might actually be the most consistent relationship you can get. 22. There's a museum dedicated entirely to bad art. In Massachusetts, there's a museum that proudly celebrates failure, the Museum of Bad Art. Every painting on display is so terrible. It's amazing. Awkward portraits, melted landscapes, cursed expressions. It's glorious chaos on canvas. Their slogan, art too bad to be ignored. Some pieces were rescued from dumpsters. Others proudly donated. Yet people love it. Proof that beauty really is in the eye of the confused. It's the only museum where every artist becomes famous, completely by accident. 23. A man survived falling from space without a parachute. In 1972, Soviet pilot Ivan Chisov fell 22,000 feet from his damaged plane. Without a parachute, he passed out midair, slammed into a snowy ravine, and somehow survived. Broken bones, bruises, disbelief, but alive. Doctors called it a 1 in a billion miracle. When asked what went through his mind, he said, "The ground." Dark humor at its finest. Years later, skydiver Felix Baumgartner broke the sound barrier in freefall, but Chisov did it first, without even trying. 24. A piano once fell from the sky for art. In 2015, British artist Luke Jerome dropped a grand piano off a 100-foot cliff just to see what sound destruction makes. The fall was filmed in slow motion. As the piano exploded into glittering fragments, critics called it deeply symbolic. Locals called it a waste of a perfectly good piano. The video went viral, a mix of beauty, chaos, and expensive noise. It proved one thing: art doesn't always have to make sense. It just has to make you feel something, preferably not regret. 25. A woman once ran a marathon without realizing it. In 2021, a British woman named Rachel went out for a normal morning jog. She saw a bunch of people running and thought it was a community event, so she joined in. For fun, by the time she realized it was an official 26-mile race, she was already halfway through. Instead of quitting, she finished the whole thing. No training, no plan, just pure accidental stubbornness. Spectators cheered. Officials were confused. Rachel later said, "If I'd already run 13 miles, I might as well get a medal." Legend says that's how motivation should work, by accident. 26. There's a fish that can climb trees. Meet the mud skipper, a fish that basically said water. I'll pass. This amphibious rebel uses its fins like tiny legs to walk, climb roots, and even breathe air through its skin and mouth lining. It spends more time out of water than in it, often sunbathing or starting turf wars on muddy banks. Scientists call it a living bridge between fish and land animals. Nature calls it an early draft of evolution that somehow got approved. Somewhere, Darwin is still updating his notes. 27. An octopus escaped an aquarium through a drain. Inky, an octopus at New Zealand's National Aquarium, pulled a full jailbreak. He squeezed through a small gap in his tank lid, slid across the floor, and wriggled down a 50-meter drain pipe straight back into the ocean. No alarms, no rescue, just pure oceanic escape energy. Staff found suction marks as his goodbye note. Marine biologists applauded his brains and determination. Finding Nemo suddenly feels a little more realistic. 28. A city banned dyeing as illegal. In Longyearbyen, Norway, dyeing is technically against the rules. Why? The permafrost stops bodies from decomposing properly. That means old viruses and bacteria could stick around in frozen graves. Since 1950, terminally ill residents get flown to the mainland to spend their final days. It sounds harsh, but it's practical. No cemetery wants ancient pathogens. Longyearbyen, the only place where death has a paperwork problem. 29. A lake can turn animals into stone. Lake Natron in Tanzania looks surreal and red. Its high alkalinity can mummify animals that fall in, preserving them like eerie statues. Photographer Nick Brandt captured birds frozen mid-flight, hauntingly beautiful and tragic. It's not magic, it's chemistry, but the results look exactly like Medusa left her mark on nature. 30 scientists taught rats to drive tiny cars. At the University of Richmond, researchers built miniature electric cars and trained rats to drive them. The rats steered toward food rewards, learned routes, and showed lowered stress behind the wheel. Tiny rodents cruising in plastic plastic convertibles went viral. It's adorable, weird, and a little humiliating for anyone who struggles with parallel parking. Science score 1. Logic score 0. 31 bees can detect bombs. Honeybees extend their tongues when they smell certain chemicals. Scientists trained that reflex to spot traces of explosives, like tea. With sugar water as motivation, bees can identify dangerous compounds faster than some dogs. They're tiny, efficient, and now technically part of national security. Imagine telling airport security your scan was handled by a bee. Mother Nature built the drone first. 32. There's a mushroom that controls minds. Ophiocordyceps unilateralis infects ants, hijacks their nervous systems, and forces them to climb high before they die. The fungus sprouts from the ant's head and rains spores on the unlucky below. It's nature's zombie factory, efficient, cinematic, and nightmare fuel. If this ever jumps species, we're all background characters. 33. There's a hotel run entirely by robots. Japan's Hena Hotel tried to staff everything with machines. Dinosaur-shaped receptionists, robot bell, mechanical room service. At first, it was a sensation. Then the robots started malfunctioning. They woke guests at 3 a.m., deleted bookings, and generally behaved like haunted appliances. Eventually, the hotel laid off many of its robots. Moral: great idea, weird execution, little bit haunted. 34. There's an island where pigs swim in the ocean. Welcome to Pig Beach in the Bahamas. Here, the locals are pigs. Real pigs that paddle through crystal clear water and pose for selfies. No one knows exactly how they arrived. Now they live their best beach life, fed by tourists and loved online. Proof that evolution sometimes takes a vacation and makes adorable decisions. 35. A man found a message in a bottle from himself. In 2014, Clint Buffington found a bottle on a Caribbean shore. Inside was a note written 37 years earlier by a man with the same last name. He tracked down the author and realized it was his own father's message. Lost at sea before Clint was born. The note read, "Be kind, and the sea will return your kindness." Cosmic postcard or destiny. Either way, it's the most poetic read receipt ever. 36. Your stomach gets a new lining every few days. Stomach acid is so strong, it can dissolve razor blades in lab tests. To stop the stomach from digesting itself, the body rebuilds the stomach lining every 3 to 4 days. Think of it as your digestive system hitting refresh after every questionable midnight snack. You've technically had hundreds of stomachs, each one braving pizza at 2 a.m. 37. There's a tree that can walk. The Socratia exorhiza, the walking palm of the Amazon, grows new roots towards sunlight and lets older roots die. Over time, it slowly shifts position, a few centimeters a day. It's nature's slowest traveler, the world's quietest commuter. If ants had interns, this would be one of them. 38. Turtles can breathe through their butts. Some turtles survive underwater. Hibernation by absorbing oxygen through blood vessels in their cloaca. The process is called cloacal respiration. Efficient? Yes. Dignified? Debatable. Proof that evolution picks the weirdest, most effective hacks. 39. There's a country with no mosquitoes. Iceland has 0 mosquitoes. Scientists aren't exactly sure why. Maybe the cold, the clean water, or Viking-level karma. Camp there, and you'll hear absolute silence at night. If paradise had a sound, it would be that quiet. 40. The inventor of the guillotine didn't die by it. Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotine proposed a device to make executions quicker and less brutal. Ironically, he never suffered the fate his name became famous for. He died of natural causes years later. Lesson: be careful what you put your name on. Branding can be historic and awkward. 41. Bananas are radioactive, and it's totally fine. Bananas contain tiny amounts of radioactive potassium-40. You'd need to eat millions of them to get any harmful dose. Physicists joke about measuring radiation in banana-equivalent doses. Once, a shipment of bananas even set off a radiation alarm at a dock. Healthy, delicious, and mildly atomic breakfast with personality. 42. There's a volcano that spews blue fire. At Kawah Ijon in Indonesia, sulfur gas burns blue when it ignites at extreme temperature. At night, the crater glows electric blue, like a scene from a sci-fi movie. Tourists brave toxic fumes to see it. Nature doesn't need filters. It just mixes sulfur, heat, and human curiosity. 43. Your body literally glows, but too dim to see. Human cells emit tiny amounts of light called biophoton emission. Researchers in Japan captured this faint glow with ultra-sensitive cameras. It peaks in the afternoon and fades at night. You are technically a personal nightlight, just one that fails its job spectacularly. 44 male seahorses get pregnant. In seahorses, the female transfers eggs into a pouch on the male's belly. The male fertilizes and carries them until birth, controlling temperature, salinity, and oxygen. When labor comes, he releases up to 2,000 baby seahorses. Parenting equality. But with fins, 45, there's a reign of spiders in Brazil. In parts of Brazil, thousands of Parawixia bistriata spiders spin webs that catch the wind, making it look like spiders are falling from the sky. It's a migration phenomenon, not a horror script. But tourists don't love the surprise. The spiders aren't dangerous, but the sight is pure nature horror. 46. The London beer flood. In October of 1814, a giant vat at the Horseshoe Brewery collapsed. Bursting vats sent over 1 million liters of beer gushing through London streets. Homes were smashed, people were swept away, and 8 lives were lost. It's history's most chaotic. Oktoberfest, and a reminder that industrial accidents can get very, very sticky. 47. The Great Emu War. Australia lost 2 birds. In 1932, Australia deployed soldiers and machine guns to cull emus that were damaging crops. The emus scattered, split into small groups, and outran the troops. After broken equipment, few bird casualties, and national embarrassment, the campaign was called off. Outcome: tactical retreat. Moral victory for the emus. Never underestimate a bird with commitment issues. 48. The world's shortest scheduled flight lasts under a minute. Between Westray and Papa Westray in Scotland, the scheduled flight can take about 47 seconds in ideal winds. On a good day, it's under 30 seconds. Locals use it as a commute. Tourists book it for bragging rights. It's the perfect trip for anyone who hates airports but loves novelty. 49. A town where the dead outnumber the living. Colma, California, is sometimes called the City of Souls. About 1,500 people live there, and roughly 150,000 are buried there. San Francisco moved many cemeteries to Colma at the turn of the last century. Today, its economy quietly revolves around memorials and headstone craftsmanship, a place where memory is literally the local industry. 50. There are naturally pink lakes you can swim in. Some lakes turn pink because salt-loving algae and bacteria produce red pigments. Lake Hillier in Australia is a famous bubblegum pink example. From the shore, it glows neon. From above, it looks like cotton candy. Strangely, the water can still be safe to touch. Sometimes nature makes bold aesthetic choices and doesn't ask permission. And there you have it, another round of human stupidity, cosmic coincidences, and nature's epic flexes. From a beer flood that turned London into a pub, to a government losing dignity in a war against emus, reality proves it has better writers than we do. If you enjoyed this odd collection, hit subscribe, or at least drop a comment telling me which fact made you spit your drink. Next time, we'll push the limit, stranger science, Ador laws, and more people doing things that make humanity facepalm. Thanks for watching, keep your logic on a leash, and remember, when the world stops making sense, we'll be here to read it out loud.